Well, hey, welcome back, everybody. Well, man, I wasn't sure we were gonna have an episode this week. It's been raining and snowing, temperatures down to 32 degrees, waking up in the morning with frost on my windows. How crazy is that? A few weeks ago, we were down in the Mojave. It was 103. Last week, it was a beautiful 72 when we were looking at that last mine, and now this week, it's rain and snow and rain and snow. But that's okay. Old Bob has four-wheel drive, and unless the snow is up to his bumper, we can go just about anywhere. So, so if you hear a bunch of jets in the background, there's about 3 F-16s, I'm guessing they're F-16s, playing cat and mouse above my head up here. So they're making a little bit of noise today. But anyways, we got this old cabin here, and further on up the way, I've got, it looks to be like probably what's an old tool bin. Because it's sitting right next to the adit with a bunch of compressor pipe coming out of it, and then above that there's 2 adits with about 3 different waste rock piles that I saw on the map, so we'll be doing that next. And then finally, to end the day, down around the mountain over here there is what appears to be an old mill site and another cabin. So we'll take a look at that when we finish things off near the end of the video. But first, all right, let's get started on this cabin. Well, from what I can see, we're probably back in the 30s and 40s again. In that time frame, we got wire nails. I wonder what this thing is. Hard telling. All right, well, let's take a peek inside. All right, so now I know what you're all going to ask me. What the heck were you running from? Well, a couple days ago, I was scouting out a site, and I looked up on the side of the ridge. Look at this, we have a pantry. Isn't that cool? What's left of an old pantry. All right, turning around this way. So I looked up on the side of this ridge, and I could see a bunch of vultures flying around. And so I went up there to see what was dead. We got over here. Well, looks like somebody found a few Prince Albert cans. Old jar. What's this? Jar filled with something. All right. So anyways, yeah, I worked my way up on the side of that hill looking for whatever was dead up there, thinking, I'm just probably going to find a bunch of vultures and maybe a coyote or 2. Well, lo and behold, wouldn't you know, there's a mountain lion sitting up there, and he was watching me. And of course, I didn't have my cameras with me. So, well, even if I would have, I'll bet he was 500 yards away when I spotted him. But he kept an eye on me. So, but that, it was fun to make something dramatic for an intro. Well, that's what was going on. We got over here. Looks like what was left of another old pantry and a cookie tin right there. Okay. Well, not too much going on over here, although I did see across the way what's this over here in the woods? Looks like an old bird feeder. Oh yeah, that's what that is. Okay. Someone just nailed it up on the tree over here. You know what that is, folks? Because I used to do the same thing when I was a kid back at hunting camp. So I would place something like this on a tree not too far away from camp, and then I could just sit right out in front of our campsite and shoot red squirrels with my 22 and make a good batch of squirrel gravy. Yum yum. There you go. All right, well, let's work our way over to this tin roofed looking, I'm guessing it's a tool shed. Oh, wait, what do we got over here? Hold on, folks. Seen something interesting. See, just about the time I'm gonna shut you down, I find something else. Oh, we got their can dump. Yep, that's about it. And none of the cans have any solder on them, so we're well past 1900. Okay, all right, well, let's work our way further on up the canyon. I'll see you up there. All right, we made it a little bit further up the canyon, and here's the tool shed. And a little bit up to our right, over here, you can see we've got an adit right there, and some vent pipe going further on up, as well as what looks to be some rail here going further on up the hill. And I can see about 3 or 4 waste rock piles up there, so we'll get to those in a minute. For now, let's take a look at this tool shed. See here, they made a part of their stovepipe out of a carbide tin. What is this over here? Is this a shaft or what? Nope. Just a little sump. That's interesting. And we got a nut and bolt crib. You'll see them oftentimes in places like this. And it's been entirely emptied out from what I can see. What do we got over here now? And of course, you're going to need a tool bench. A few odds and ends. Nothing too interesting. And at one time they must have had their compressor in here, because that's what that is. That's a big compressor pipe. All right. Not too much to look at in there. So what do you say we head on into this first adit? All right, I'll meet back up with you folks in a moment. All right, yeah, it's snowing, guys. Now's a good time to go inside of an adit while it does its thing out here. Oh. Well, we've got some rail going in here, always a good sign. And a bunch of perforated pipe. I would imagine that's probably from people some recent prospectors, huh? All right, little exploratory drift off to our left. And then we continue off to our right. Okay. bunch of native timbers laying in here. And you can notice they weren't hacked apart with a chainsaw, folks. Yeah, that was an axe. But by the looks of the cans and the nails we saw back there at the tool shack, I think we're working in the 30s and 40s again. Well, short and sweet on this one. Okay. Well, that just means we're going to have to work our way further up the hill. So let's do that. I'll meet back up with you guys further on up. All right, we made it up here to the second adit. There's looking back down on the tool bin, I guess we'll call it, and then the adit that we just came from below us. So I hiked up the hill here, kind of followed where those rails were going, and here's what we got. Ooh, look at that stole right there, holding up that giant rock. Yikes. That's sketchy looking. Well, let's try to get underneath that without touching anything. What do you say? Got another stall here holding up a bunch of waste rock. Yeah, look above us here. Okay. Well, I'm able to stand up in this one, folks. Nice and tall. Yeah, and you can see where they were laying all these stalls above us to keep all that rock from falling down on their heads. Now, I wanted to point something out to you before we get a little bit too learn how to talk. Before we get a little bit too far into this, you see this big iron plate right here? Well, in one of my previous episodes, I told you guys that was a skiff plate. So when you're working a stope, you can put a plate down by the ore car and throw the rocks on it to kind of act as a kind of funnel towards the ore car. I found out later from one of my subscribers that actually what they do with these a lot of times is when they're blasting in towards the face of the mine, they'll put up one of these big steel barriers so that when they do the blast, all that fly rock doesn't end back into the haulage adit, because then they gotta muck it all back out from many feet, depending on how much rock blew the rock back into the haulage adit. So instead, what they would do is they would put these big pieces of plate steel up, and that would keep all the fly rock from flying back into the adit. Oh, very cool. Look at this. I got a ladder going up, and yeah, and you can see they were working this stope here. Ooh, we've got a very good looking carbide tin right down there. We'll revisit that in a moment. And then, let's see here. Can I get down in there? No, that's as far as it goes. The stope ends right there. Okay. That's a beautiful looking carbide tin. I'll be right back, folks. I'm going to go down there and grab that so we can take a closer look at it. All right, I went down there and I retrieved that Union Carbide tin. That one's in really nice shape. Usually they're all rusted up and none of the paint's left on them. It's kind of rare to find them that are still painted like that. Okay, well, that's as far as this one goes in, and our only other choice is up there. Let's take a moment and think this through. I'll be right back. Okay, back again. Had to switch to a different camera because to do this, I'm going to need all my hands. All right. This doesn't look too bad. There's plenty of places here to put my feet. Problem is there's mouse and bat guano everywhere. Okay. Well, they got that ladder lashed on there pretty darn good. If we're lucky, maybe the upper part of this stope will continue on, huh? All right, we're standing on a false floor, and that's where we just came from. Looks like we got a way out over here, and look at this old pin here. Pull that out, put it in to pin something. So now there's a name for this, and darn it if I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but the axle would drop in on there, and that's how you'd raise and lower, more than likely just tools. I wouldn't imagine that'd be used for lifting ore. What's over here? Nothing too significant, just some shelves. All right. Yeah, I haven't used helmet cam in any of my previous videos yet, so welcome to helmet cam. What we got here? Oh, a big can of red velvet tobacco. And the way back out, just in case anything ever got ugly. All right, well, we worked our way to the topmost part of the open stope, or not actually an open stope, the upper part of the stope, I should say. So, just for fun, I'll leave the camera turned on just in case I go for a tumble. What do you say? All right. Let's work our way back down this ladder. Everybody's saying, I thought he didn't do ladders. Well, when they look this nice, Yes, I do. This is a really good looking ladder. Watch out for that bottom rung there. That one looks like a doozy. There we go. Okay. Now we got to get down to this one here. One more to go. And there we are. All right, folks. Let's work our way back outside, see what else we can find. I'll be back up with you in a bit. All right, so we're back outside, and I worked my way further up the hill. Now we were just right down there from the second adit. And I worked my way up to what was the top part of that stope we just climbed up in. So you'll see at one time what they did is they stretched all these stalls across the top here to keep all the rock from falling on their heads, but that since has gave way, and that's all that's left of it. So, well, all right, well, that's the end of this one, but we're not done yet, folks. No, sir. Now I'm going to take you down to the mill site, because there's an old trail leading from this location that I suspect went to a mill and another cabin. So let's head on over there and take a look at that. All right, so we worked our way a little bit further on down the canyon, and we've got ourselves right around the corner over here is a mill site and this old cabin. And yeah, it's a logical place to put a mill site. There's a little creek just running here off to my right, and of course you're going to need water if you're doing any sort of gravity separation without using any chemicals. So, all right, well, what do you say we get things kicked off and start with this old cabin here? Walk through the front door, and this was probably one time a bedroom. Okay, here we are in the main living quarters. Of course, the the roof has seen better days. Okay, and if you guys don't believe that there's mountain lions around here, well, let me show you something. See that right there? See that scat? That's mountain lion. And if you look real close, I'm going to show you here. We've got bone in it right there. See all the hair? Notice the diameter? Yeah. That's mountain lion. And everybody's saying, ew, he's picking through poo. Let's try to get around this without getting a bunch of this guano on me here. So if you're wondering, well, if you got mountain lions in the area, are you armed? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And a little closet. All right. Well, that's it for this old cabin. What do you say we head on over to the mill site? Yeah, if you can remember back when we were doing our Mojave Explorers, some of those locations were in California, and they've got way too many rules and regulations when it comes to open carry. So back in those days, I was just carrying my pepper spray, but here in Nevada, open carry on your hip is just fine. All right, we're at the mill site here. Let's see what we've got. This was the location at one time for the shaker table. How do I know that? Because I used to own one. Okay, let's see what we got over here without this whole roof coming down on me. Oh boy. See, you'd have your shaker table right here. They had a little trough coming down right there. And over here to the right, it looks like the axle, it looks like the frame off of probably an old Model T or something like that, or a 1930s, 1940s pickup truck. You can look back over there, see that? They cut out an indentation in that wood for the axle, or for the PTO, power transfer out. Right there. This was probably some sort of a mount for their pump that they were bringing up water from the creek. All right, turning back around. And we got an ore trough here. So they'd bring the ore down from the mine where we just came from, probably in an old, like a Model T truck. Dump it in the ore bin above us here. It'd fall in the trough, and then by hand, and shovel, they'd bring the material down and put it across shaker tables and get the gold out that way. All right, what do you say we work our way? Oh wait, hey, look over here. Look here, we got something. Hold on, getting ahead of myself. What do we got over here, folks? Is this another adit? Looks like it. Oh yeah. Hold on, let me get my flashlight and shine in there. Well, that's as far as it goes. So that's going to be powder storage. Yep. Or tools. Let's look back on it, because see, they once built a little entrance to it here. Could have been a place just to keep your tools, maybe keep your powder, keep things out of the rain. What do you say we go up top up there and take a look at that? I'll meet you up there. Okay, let's work our way up to the top of the mill here. Yep. This right here would have been, just kind of think of it as a kind of an ore bin or a hopper, and then they could feed the material down that trough. See this? Let me see if I can step out on it without falling through the floor. So as they would bring the rock down, they had a little grizzly screen right here. See that? That would screen off all the larger rocks, and then anything that's looks to be about 1/4 inch minus went on through and down to the shaker tables. All right. So looks like what we've got here, folks, taking into consideration the 2 cabins, the mine, which the workings weren't that substantial. I'm going to classify this as your classic early 1900s mom and pop operation. But, you know, hey, they did go all the way and build 2 cabins, so makes you wonder just how many guys they had working it. Well, all right, let's work our way back down to the cabin. I'll meet you down there. All right, we're back down here by the cabin. I didn't notice this earlier. Guess we should have walked around behind it, huh? They had little tool bin thing here in the back. What do we got in here? The critter built a nice nest up there. And I'm seeing just a bunch of old plumbing parts on the floor. That's about it. Huh. Okay. Well, folks, that pretty much wraps things up for this location. I appreciate you coming along, and of course, as always, I appreciate all my new subscribers. I wish that mine was a little bit more extensive, but hey, we got to see some cool cabins on the mill site on this one. So all right, well, let's hope that the weather gets a little bit better, and next week we can head on over to what I believe is going to be a little bit bigger mine, but you know, you never know. You drive all those miles, you get to a location, and it could be barred, could be gated, or it could be an active mining claim with no trespassing signs all over the place. And I'm not going to go into one of those because, heck, back in the day when I had my gold mine, I wouldn't want people trespassing on it. And I'm not going to do that to any active mining claim that I find. So, you know, I'll be respectful. But these old ones, they're fair game. So, okay, well, I'm going to get on out of here before we get some more snow. Again, I appreciate you coming along. We'll see you again next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.